6 months ago, I made a decision that most people around me thought was either impressive or completely insane. I decided to live on exactly half of my income. Every month, for 6 straight months, 50 cents out of every dollar I earned was off limits for spending. It went straight to savings and investments. No touching it. No exceptions. No negotiation. Now, I want to be honest with you right up front. I'm not going to stand here and tell you it was easy. It wasn't. There were weeks I hated this experiment. There were moments I genuinely questioned my sanity. And there were things I missed. Social dinners, spontaneous weekends, the casual convenience of just not thinking about every dollar. But here's the thing. What happened to my actual financial picture over those 6 months? The numbers, the net worth, the investments, the savings, the psychological shift in how I think about money. It changed something in me permanently. So today, I'm going to walk you through all of it, month by month. The real numbers. The wins, the failures, the unexpected consequences, both good and bad. And at the end, I'm going to tell you honestly, was it worth it? And more importantly, should you try it? Let's start with where I was before this experiment even began. Before I get into the experiment, I need to give you context, because this only makes sense if you know where I started. I'm going to be straightforward with you about the numbers, even though sharing financial details publicly is uncomfortable. Because you deserve the full honest picture, not a sanitized version. The starting numbers. Take-home income, $5,500 per month after taxes. That means 50%. The spending budget was $2,750 per month. The other 50%, savings and investments, was $2,750 per month every month. For context, the U.S. personal savings rate in late 2025 sat at just 3.6%. The average American saves less than 4 cents out of every dollar they earn. I was about to try saving 50. That's nearly 14 times the national average. National average personal savings rate in 2025, 3.6% of income. My target savings rate, 50%, roughly 14x the average American. My financial situation before day one. Credit card debt, $0. Paid off 14 months earlier. Student loans, $0. Paid off 2 years prior. Emergency fund, $6,500, about 2.5 months of my old expenses. Retirement accounts, 401k plus Roth IRA, $34,200 combined. Net worth on day one, approximately $41,800. I want to be real about something. I was in a relatively clean financial position going into this. No consumer debt, a starter emergency fund, and some retirement savings already. That matters. If I had been carrying $15,000 in credit card debt going in, this experiment would have looked very different. The 50% savings target was aggressive by any measure. My previous savings rate had been around 18%, which is solid. But 50%? That meant rethinking almost everything. Before month one started, I spent 2 weeks building the system. Because here's something I've learned about financial discipline. Willpower alone doesn't work. You have to engineer your environment so the right behavior is automatic. Step 1. Automate everything immediately on payday. The moment my paycheck hit, $2,750 was automatically moved. $500 went to beef up the emergency fund toward a full 3 months of expenses. $583 went to max out my Roth IRA contributions on a monthly basis, $7,000 annual limit 12. The remaining $1,667 went into a taxable brokerage account, investing in a simple S&P 500 index fund. This happened before I ever saw the money, before I could think about it, before any temptation existed. Step 2. Build the $2,750 spending budget. I mapped every essential expense first. Rent, utilities, groceries, phone, car insurance, health insurance. Then I saw what was left for everything else. The math was uncomfortable. That miscellaneous buffer was intentional. A cushion for things I couldn't predict. Life doesn't fit perfectly into spreadsheet boxes. Step 3. Track every single dollar, every week. Every Sunday evening, open the tracking spreadsheet, enter every transaction from the week, check the running balance. 5 minutes. Non-negotiable. No tracking, no accountability. Cook experiment fails. Month 1 felt almost fun. There's a psychological phenomenon where starting a new challenge triggers a kind of excitement, a honeymoon period, where the novelty of doing something different makes it easier. I felt that. I meal prepped obsessively. I discovered that cooking at home, actually putting in the effort to make real food, wasn't a punishment. I was eating better than I had been at restaurants. I found a grocery store that was significantly cheaper than where I'd been shopping out of habit. I canceled every subscription I hadn't used in the last 30 days. Netflix, a meditation app, 2 delivery service trials. Gone. I saved $92 in the first week just by changing where I bought groceries and canceling things I'd forgotten I was paying for. Socially, month 1 was fine. I told close friends I was running a financial experiment. Most were curious. I found free alternatives, hiking instead of bar nights, cooking together instead of restaurants, free outdoor events instead of paid entertainment. Month 1 financial results. Spending total, $2,618, $132 under budget. First win. Invested saved, $2,732, surplus $2,882 total. Net worth change, plus $3,100 investment gains plus savings contributions. Emotional state, motivated. Almost smug. This doesn't seem that hard. Famous last words. Month 2 is where reality arrived. A close friend had a birthday dinner at a restaurant I genuinely could not justify under the new budget. The dinner was going to be $85 with drinks, and my share of the birthday surprise. I went anyway. I paid it. And I felt guilty about it for a week, which was its own kind of exhausting. I also discovered that some of my food cuts had consequences I didn't expect. The cheaper protein options I'd switched to were fine nutritionally, but the time investment of cooking everything from scratch was real. I was spending more time in the kitchen and less time on things I cared about. That was a hidden cost the spreadsheet didn't capture. I started resenting the budget a little, not because I couldn't do it, but because I felt like it was running my decisions instead of me running it. The fix? I deliberately built one intentional splurge into the monthly budget. Not an accident, not guilt, a chosen, planned treat. For me, it was one nice dinner per month. Budgeted in advance, that single adjustment made everything more sustainable. Month 2 financial results. Spending total, $2,810, $60 over budget the birthday enter. Savings rate achieved, 47.9%, slightly under 50% for the first time. Lesson learned, rigid budgets break. Flexible systems bend and survive. Net worth change, plus 2,780. Market was flat, gains mostly from contributions. Emotional state, frustrated but determined. Made one key adjustment. Something shifted in month 3. The system had adjusted. The habits had settled in, and I started noticing something unexpected. I was spending less mental energy on money, not more. Here's what I mean. Most people think budgeting tightly means constantly thinking about money. The opposite happened. Because everything was automated and planned, I wasn't making dozens of small financial decisions every week. The decisions had already been made. I just lived within them. I stopped checking my bank account every day out of anxiety and started checking it once a week out of curiosity. That's a very different feeling. I also discovered what personal finance people call hedonic adaptation, the psychological process where you adjust your happiness baseline to match your circumstances. The luxuries I'd cut in month 1 that I thought I'd miss constantly, by month 3, I barely noticed they were gone. My social life had reorganized around free and low-cost activities. And honestly, some of them were better. I took a free city walking tour I'd never done despite living here for years. I started a Sunday cooking routine that became something I genuinely looked forward to. I read more. The slower pace of a lower spending lifestyle created space I hadn't expected. Month 3 financial results. Spending total, $2,690, $60 under budget. Savings rate achieved, 51.1%. First month cleanly over 50%. Running net worth change, 3 throp, plus $9,400 combined. Emergency fund status, now at $7,750, approaching 3 full months of expenses. Emotional state. Genuinely settled. The experiment started feeling normal. Month 4 tested the entire system. My car needed unexpected brake work, $560. That's real money. That's real life. And this is exactly the situation that sends most people back to a credit card. But here's what happened instead. The emergency fund absorbed the hit. Completely. No credit card. No debt. No financial crisis. I paid it, noted it, and moved on. The emergency fund did exactly what it exists to do. Paying that car bill from savings instead of a credit card was the moment the whole system proved itself. 6 months of past me being disciplined present me from a problem. The month still came in over budget on spending, $2,980 including the car repair. But I made a deliberate choice. I reduced that month's brokerage investment by $230 to cover the overage. The Roth IRA contribution stayed untouched. The emergency fund replenishment started the following month. This is what financial resilience actually looks like. Not perfection. Adaptability. The system bent, it didn't break. Month 4 financial results. Spending total, $2,980, $230 over budget. Savings rate achieved, 45.8%, lowest month of the experiment. Emergency fund, drawn down to $7,190, began rebuilding month 5. Lesson: emergency funds aren't just financial tools, they're stress management tools. Net worth change, plus 2,100 SOAR investment contribution plus flat market. Emotional state, briefly stressed, then genuinely proud of how the system handled it. Month 5 was the month the math started feeling different. I rebuilt the emergency fund. I was back to full investment contributions. And the investment accounts, which had been growing quietly in the background, started showing balances that felt meaningful for the first time. Compounding was starting to show up visibly in the numbers. I also got a small work bonus in month 5, $800. 6 months earlier, that bonus would have been absorbed into lifestyle spending almost immediately. I wouldn't have been able to tell you 3 months later what it went toward. This time, it was simple. $600 into the brokerage, $200 added to the emergency fund. Decision made in about 45 seconds. The system had trained me to make better decisions without agonizing over them. I've had bonuses before that just disappeared. This time I knew exactly where every dollar went. That felt like a completely different relationship with money. Month 5 financial results. Spending total, $2,620, well under budget. Savings rate achieved, 52.4% including bonus allocation. Net worth change, plus 4,100 draw market month plus full contributions plus bonus. Emotional state, energized. The numbers are starting to compound visibly. I made one intentional choice in month 6 that I want to be transparent about. I let myself spend slightly more on 2 social events I'd been wanting to attend. One was a concert. One was a friend's destination birthday. I drove instead of flew to keep it reasonable. The total overage was about $180. But here's the thing. I planned for it. I adjusted the brokerage contribution down by $180 that month. Total savings rate still came in at 46.7%. And I didn't feel guilty. Because it was a choice, not a failure. That distinction, intentional choice versus budget failure, turned out to be one of the most important psychological lessons of the entire 6 months. By month 6, I wasn't counting down to the end of the experiment. I was thinking about what to keep permanently and what to adjust. That surprised me more than any number. Month 6 financial results. Spending total, $2,930, intentionally slightly over. Savings rate achieved, 46.7%. Net worth change, plus 3,900. Emotional state proud, clear-headed, genuinely changed. The wealth math, what this actually means. Let me put this in perspective. Net worth went from $41,800 to $58,100 in 6 months, a $16,300 increase. That's a 39% increase in net worth in half a year. My previous savings rate was 918%, so I saved roughly $990 last month before. Now, $2,750 a month. That's 2.78x more wealth building per month. And here's the number that matters most for the long term, not the 6-month result, but what those invested dollars will become. $16,500 invested, assuming 10% average annual return. Over 25 years tucks her $178,000 from just these 6 months. If I maintain this savings rate for 1 year, $33,000 over 25 years ducks $63,57,000 from year 1 alone. This is why savings rate is the most powerful lever in wealth building. Not income, not stock picks, not timing the market. How much you save and how early determines everything. What the numbers don't show. Here's what the spreadsheet can't capture. The relationship with money completely changed. I stopped making unconscious spending decisions. I stopped feeling vaguely anxious about whether I could cover an emergency. I started thinking about purchases differently. Not can I afford this, but is this how I want to use this dollar? Those are very different questions. One study found that 52% of Americans worry about money every single day. I was one of them before this experiment. I'm not anymore. That's worth something the net worth table doesn't quantify. Even at $3,000 per month take home, $36,000 annual after-tax income, a 50% savings rate invested consistently over 20 years produces over $1 million. This is not theoretical. This is compound interest math applied to a savings discipline that ordinary people can adopt. You don't have to be extreme about it. What if you went from 10% savings to 30%? What if you saved 25% for 2 years and then reassessed? Every percentage point you increase your savings rate shortens the timeline to financial freedom. Every dollar invested today is working 24 hours a day, compounding toward your future. Yes, without question. But not for the reason you might expect. The money is real. $16,300 in net worth growth, $16,500 invested, a retirement account that's growing on its own now. That's meaningful. But what changed more than the numbers was the relationship. I stopped being someone money happened to. I became someone who decides where their money goes. That shift, from reactive to intentional, is the real result of this experiment. And no spreadsheet can fully capture how different that feels. What I'm doing now, my post-experiment rate. I'm not maintaining 50% savings indefinitely. That would require a lifestyle that, honestly, I don't want to sustain at the same intensity forever. What I am maintaining is a 35% savings rate, which is nearly twice what I was saving before this experiment, and dramatically higher than the 3.6% national average. The automation stays. The weekly tracking stays. The emergency fund stays fully funded. The Roth IRA stays maxed. The intentional splurge stays. I kept the structure and adjusted the intensity. Your one action from this video. I'm not asking you to do 50%. I'm asking you to do this one thing. Calculate your current savings rate. Take what you actually saved last month, divide it by your take-home income, multiply by 100. That's your savings rate. If it's below 15%, that's where we start. If it's between 15 and 25%, push it to 30. If you're already at 30%, this experiment might be exactly what you need to try. Drop your current savings rate in the comments below. I'm curious where you're starting from. And if you want to see me document a full year of this, not just 6 months, let me know down there. Subscribe so you don't miss it. See you in the next one.